All right, so we're recording in the evening tonight, so we got our lights set up, and Frankie has decided it's time to play, so hopefully we can block that out with a little music. Anyway, my friend Alex is about to go on a trip to Amsterdam, France, and Italy, and my other friend Pat is on her way to Italy this week as well. And my other friend Jen just got back from an East Coast trip where she was visiting her family, and then she visited more family in New York City. So in honor of the three of them, let's talk about some of my favorite vacations. Woo! All right, so let's see. Think about some really weird ones. There was one time back in the 90s when my friends Melissa and Larry and I decided that we wanted to go to Elko, Nevada. I still don't know why, but they really wanted to go and I guess check out to see if they wanted to live there for whatever reason. So we took my little Ford Ranger and decided to drive there, and we headed out. It was either late in the afternoon or early in the morning. I think it was early in the morning. And we had to drive over Mount Hood. We decided to take the back roads. And I was in the back of the truck because it's a very small truck, and didn't want to be squeezed in with them. I thought, I could just wrap up in some blankets and put a tarp over me in case it rains, and it'll be great. Made it about an hour when it was just way, way, way too cold. I don't even remember what time of year it was, but with the cold air, and it would just get sucked in underneath the tarp, and very, very cold. So I pounded on the window and they pulled over, and I climbed in the front, and we continued on. And I kept trying to sit in the back because it was just too crowded with three people in the front. But it was a great time because at one point I was driving and we see all these cars. We're out in the middle of nowhere in Oregon. We see all these cars pulled on the side of the road, and we're like, what's going on? And we look off to the left, and there was a band of wild horses that was grazing, and then they got up and started trotting along, and it was really cool to get to see them in the wild and see a little bit of nature. And then I think it was a few hours later, I was driving still, and the road was pretty bare, and we're going down, and I could see these big mounds in front of me, like on the road and on the side of the road, and had no idea what was going on. As we got closer, they were getting bigger and bigger. And so suddenly Melissa was awake, and Larry was asleep in the passenger side, leaning against the window. And as we got closer, Melissa and I started looking at each other, and we're like, oh my God, that's cows. There were cows sleeping in. It was open rangeland, so they were just sleeping on the street or the road, and on the sides of the road and stuff. So I started slowly weaving my way through them because they weren't moving anywhere, and pulled up next to this one that was right next to the side of the window, and woke Larry up, scared the bejesus out of him. He gave a little shout and was like, what in the world, and Melissa and I were just laughing our heads off. So that was a pretty funny trip. And then I think we were in Nevada. I can't remember. I think we might have been on our way back, but I know Melissa was driving. I was in the back, sitting in the back, and suddenly I hear this thunk, thunk, thwap. Gunk. Like, what is going on? Melissa pulls over to the side of the road and jumps out, and she goes, did I hit it? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, there was an owl hit the antenna and hit the top of the truck, and I somehow it came in. We think it came in and into the back of the truck because there was a few feathers, but it must not have been too startled, and it just hopped up and continued on its way, and I didn't even see anything. I was huddled in the back there, and like, what's going on? So that was a pretty funny trip. Let's see. went on a trip to Hawaii with my dad and my grandmother in the 90s, and spent, 3 or 4 days over there. That was nice. Went and saw Pearl Harbor and Diamond Head, and traveled around the whole one of the islands. I don't even know where we were, but it was interesting. I'd never been like on a vacation like that with my dad before, so that was a unique trip that we got to do together and with my grandmother. I did a few trips with my grandma. She liked to go visit a friend of hers in Florence, Oregon, and sometimes one of my cousins would drive her over there. I think I took her a couple of times and would stay with her friend there at the beach and have our little adventures together, and taking care of her and her taking care of me. So that was fun. I had, when I met my friend Jen and another friend Sam, we had known each other for not even a year. That we actually met in 2001, just after 9/11 occurred. So it was October, November when we met. And the next year, Jen was going to a wedding in upstate New York. And she decided she wanted to drive there, and she asked us if we wanted to go along and, do a little thing. And we discovered that The West Wing, which was the TV show that the three of us liked, and that's how we met, they were filming in Pittsburgh, which was where Jen had gone to school, and she knew people there. And so we decided to travel out there. We left earlier than expected. We drove for 64 hours or something like that, 2.5 days straight, and got to Pittsburgh, slept for a few hours, and then we went wandering around. And I have no idea how they knew where this filming was taking place. I mean, yeah, there was internet. I wasn't that savvy at that time to figure out where things were happening, but Jen and Sam knew, and so we trailed around and followed them filming The West Wing for a couple of days. And then Jen went to the wedding, and Sam and I took the car and we went to Niagara Falls. Neither one of us had ever been there before, so that was a lot of fun. It was nice to share that experience with her. And we thought about going over to Canada because neither one of us had ever been to Canada. And then we're like, wait, we don't own the car that we're driving. And Sam at that time had been a private investigator, and she had a license to carry a firearm. And because we were sleeping many days in the car and it was just us girls, she had brought her firearm with her. And like I said, this was not too long after 9/11. So the restrictions on going into Canada and coming back to the US were much stronger than they had been. So we nixed that idea and did not go into Canada. Instead, we went to a place called Rock City, and we went back and got Jen, and we drove to New York, and we went to Montauk, New York, and we went into New York City, and that was my first time being in New York City. And then we drove down to Washington, D.C., and we spent a few days there. That was awesome. And then on the way back, we stopped in Chicago. I met my uncle for the first time. We may have stopped in Chicago on the way out. I don't think so. I think we stopped on the way back because we were kind of in a hurry on the way out. So we stopped on the way back, and all along the way, we met up with people that each of us had known individually over the internet through talking with people from the West Wing. And we got a chance to meet up with them and either have dinner or lunch or just hang out and go to a museum or anything like that. So it was really fun. It was a great trip. I think we did 18 states in 21 days or 21 states in 18. I can't even remember. It was a lot of states in a lot of days, and it was a really great trip. Another favorite trip of mine was in 2016 after graduating from college. Um, I was going to drive up to Oregon and Eastern Washington and visit my family and friends, and I invited Nicole to come with me because she wasn't working at that time and she had never been to the Pacific Northwest. So, like, why don't you come along? I'm already paying for gas, and we're going to be staying with some of my friends and family, and it's not going to cost us a lot of money. So she said yes, and we drove up, and we got to the base of Mount Shasta. It was pretty late at night. You could just kind of barely see the outline of it, but not really get the feeling of it. And we slept at the rest stop, and she's going to kill me. But the next morning, I woke up and I had to go to the bathroom. And so I got out of the car and I relocked the car. I set the alarm because I thought she was going to be sleeping. And I went to the bathroom, and I wasn't in there very long when I heard the car alarm go off. And, oh, that's really weird. And it just kept going off and going off and going off. And finally I finished my business and I went out there, and it was my car alarm. And she was extremely mad. She's like, why did you set the alarm? I'm like, well, I didn't want anybody to come in and steal you, I don't know. It's just habit. You get out of the car, you set the alarm, and you walk away. But I'm not even sure if she's over it yet. It's been 8 years, but I'm sorry, Nicole. I'm sorry. But then she got to see her first sight of Mount Shasta, and, oohed and awed over that. And we took pictures and traveled up, and we went to Portland and hung out, stayed at my friend Jen's house, and we did a bunch of stuff in Portland, took her around, got her to showed her where a caldera was, and let her see the lava tubes, and took her all over the city of Portland. We went to the Eastern Washington and hung out, stayed at Melissa and Larry's house, and did a bunch of stuff out there as well. Went to the Petrified Forest, and can't remember. We went to French Glen. I can't remember what it is. It's out on the way to Walla Walla. It was a town that was a settlement that was destroyed during a fight with the natives. And then we ended up driving all the way back through Portland and out to the coast. I took her to Astoria, and we saw the Goonie House, and we saw where Kindergarten Cop was filmed. And then we decided to drive down the coastline on the way back, which was absolutely beautiful. We stopped in Tillamook and had ice cream and root beer floats, and it was kind of a running theme with us to find the best root beer floats. We stopped at all kinds of different places along the different beaches, and just took pictures and explored, and slept in the car, or once in a while we would rent a hotel. And then we got to the Redwoods, and we went to the Redwood Forest, which was absolutely amazing. Spent a lot of time there and taking pictures, and just looking out over. I think we took the gondola up and looked out at the ocean and over the trees, and just took in all that nature, and continued our way down to San Francisco. And we were there for a day. We weren't even there a day. We were there a half a day. We kind of looked at each other and we're like, it's only another 6 hours to get home. And we were both ready to come home by then. It had been a couple weeks, so we pushed through, and Nicole drove. I napped a lot of the ways. Nicole was pretty determined, I think, to get home. She was ready, and I was ready, and we ended up getting back home a couple days early because we were going to stay in San Francisco an extra night or something, but we changed our minds, and we came home, and it was great. And one of those are some of my favorite trips. I've been on a lot of road trips. Oh, I got to talk about Minnesota. I can't not talk about Minnesota. couple of years ago, my friend Anne Marie invited me to come and explore the state with her, and I flew out there and she picked me up at the airport and took me to one of her favorite little restaurants, and we had burgers that, had, I can't even, she'll tell me later, can't remember what they're called, but they had the cheese inside the burger, so when you bite into it, the cheese comes out. It was very delicious, yums. I loved driving around Minnesota and all of the water and all of the trees, and I'm sure there's a lot of bad stuff about Minnesota, but for me it was all good. And it was amazing to get to spend time with her. We had again been internet friends and spent a lot of time talking with each other, FaceTiming, and writing together, writing buddies. But that's being there with her and seeing the state, and she took me to the headwaters of the Mississippi. I still remember that. It was and still is kind of an emotional experience for me, and I keep thinking about Minnesota, and I know I'm going to go back and I'm going to spend time with Anne Marie and her partner, Tammy, or her wife, I should say, and, exploring the state. And I can't wait to go on more adventures and see as much of this country as I can. I want to go and see my other friends in Colorado and Michigan and Pennsylvania and everywhere in between, up and down, left and right, Texas, friends in Texas that I want to go see and spent a lot of time with too. So thanks for coming on this little journey of my remembrance of some of my favorite trips, road trips. I've been to, like I said, I've been to Hawaii, but I've never been outside of the country. My other friends are going on these overseas trips, and I hope they have a great time, as much of a good time as I did on my trip. So thanks for coming along, and we'll see you in the next video.